Welcome to the dark side of therapy. We have a great topic for you today. We're going to be talking about everything AI. But before we get into that, let's make sure we introduce ourselves. I'm Justin. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor with certifications as a trauma professional and addictions. I am the owner of the Greater Minnesota Trauma Center, all the way in Minnesota, and I had the privilege of co-hosting this with Eric Nance, licensed independent clinical social worker, and a certified personality disorder professional. Although certified, man, we'll have to talk about that in the coming episode.
Um, yeah, it's gonna get really dicey in a couple weeks here, and I'm excited. But everything building up to that is just gonna be wonderful because we're gonna debate. But when we get to the borderline trauma topic, yeah, it ain't gonna be pretty. But you know what? We'll walk away as gentlemen. We'll listen to each other, and like I said, we'll be friends at the end. But it ain't
Yes.
gonna be pretty. Let me just say that
It'll be a good debate, and I think
it will be.
not to get too much into it, but I think personality disorders, those those diagnoses get thrown around, just like ADHD and autism and ODD and bipolar, um, and like I think that when these names get thrown around, or these disorders, like they lose the meaning and the point of
Yeah.
behind diagnosing. So I think it'll be a good episode and educational, for our viewers.
And I feel the same way, Justin. I feel like what we're really trying to do is educate people and to go into it with, okay, maybe you haven't thought about this, or maybe you haven't looked into this, and we're going to give you some resources. Here's the thing: no one is ever going to agree on the cause of something in this field ever. I don't care how many professionals you get. Somebody is going to say, well, that didn't cause it. And then somebody else is going to say, well, I read an article just the other day. Narcissism is caused by having a childhood in which you were beaten and tormented. Uh, no, the research that I've read doesn't bear that out. But somebody out there has an answer for everything. Now, you and I have the advantage of having at least part of our head screwed on straight, but we're going to
Ah,
debate it the best way we can and let people decide, aren't we?
we will let people decide, and I think, I mean, we're not going to solve all, give all the answers and solve all the problems. That's not sort of the point of this show.
Right?
I think the point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's to open up that dialogue and start some conversations that maybe people are worried about having, or they don't feel like they can have for whatever reason. But um,
Yeah.
I think that leads pretty well into today's topic in terms of what you just said about, we don't know everything. You know who does know everything?
Tell me.
That would be artificial intelligence. They know everything.
Oh, oh. Did you notice on my little title there it says skeptic?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of transitioning from being a skeptic of AI to really embracing it, um, for many different reasons. Specifically because I'm in a doctoral program, and it really has helped with some different things. So we'll get into that, but I don't know that I would call myself a skeptic. I think I don't know. I'm just learning to embrace it, I think.
So, okay, let's have a little fun. When you think AI, Justin, what comes to mind? What sparks your brain?
Two things: Chat GBT,
Okay.
and definitely the movie by Will Smith. What is it called? I
I
Robot,
Robot.
or yeah, um, that movie. That's what stands out to me when I think about AI.
Um, it's a great movie. And if people haven't seen it, there's a great scene where Will Smith is teaching the robot his emotions, and at one point the robot gets really pissed, and he says, "That one's called anger." I just love that scene. Here's what I think of to get silly. First of all, the Terminator. I think about
Ha, yeah.
what that looks like. And then I think about 2001: A Space Odyssey. And for people that haven't seen it, it was one of the first movies that really brought to light what AI could do. Have you seen it, Justin, or read the book 2001?
I have not. No.
Okay, so basically, the AI's name is Hal, Hal, and he decides that he ends up making a mistake, and the crew wants to disable him. Well, the people that are in hypersleep, he kills them first, ends up locking one of the astronauts outside of the pod bay door, and, and ultimately gets destroyed when the guy has enough sense to finally get inside his master system. But it's this whole idea of, what if AI doesn't like us anymore? What are they going to do? Now, I will never forget that visual. I've seen that movie like 30,000 times. But when I think about the future of AI, and we're going to blend it to mental health today too, I think about, holy, I'll just say, shit, what if something goes wrong? What do we do?
Yeah, what do we do? I don't know, Eric, if you have Snapchat, but
I
on
don't.
Snapchat, yeah, well, you got to get it. It's like all the cool kids are
Apparently,
using
I
it.
keep I keep hearing I need to get that. Yeah.
So on Snapchat, um, there is an AI uh, friend that you cannot delete. This was introduced, I don't know, several months ago. And it just says my AI, and you can rename it. You can call him Eric or Justin, whatever you want, but you cannot delete it. I think if you pay for like the premium version of Snapchat or something, you can delete it, but um, you can't delete them. And but so I've had some conversations with this AI and asked it some random questions.
Mhm.
Um, and if you will humor me for a second, um,
Of course I will.
I, I want to share with you some of the things that I saved. Um, so I messaged him and I said, or I guess it, and I said, uh,
Right.
what would be the most, what would be the scariest, most terrifying scenario involving AI and humans? This was June 1st, so 2 months ago. My AI says, I think the most terrifying scenario with AI and robotics would be if they became self aware and turned against humans.
Hmm.
I said, do you think that will ever be possible? My AI says, it's hard to say for sure, but I think it's unlikely. AI is designed to follow certain rules and limitations, so I don't think it would be able to turn against humans without being programmed to do so.
Hmm.
And then I said, unless, of course, AI is able to evolve on its own. And my AI says, that's a possibility, but I think it's unlikely that AI would evolve to the point of turning against humans. Even if AI did evolve on its own, I think it would be bound by the limitations of its programming. So
Mm.
that
Mm.
was a whole sophisticated conversation that I just had with a damn AI.
Um. Uh I like the part about it saying, well, that's unlikely, because maybe he's manipulating you. Humor me for a second. Maybe he wants you to believe he's innocuous. Or she. Why am I being gender specific here?
Well, so something interesting about that. About 3 weeks to a month ago,
Yeah.
um, so on Snapchat, uh, you can do, you can message your friends, right? But you can also do your own story, right? So instead of just messaging, it's just a story, kind of like on Facebook, that kind of thing.
Right, right,
So
right, right.
so everybody was freaking out because AI did its own story um, a few weeks ago, a month ago, and it wasn't really of anything. It was sort of this scanning, cartoony, pixelated, like it was like a certain color and then brown. It reminded me of sort of like a beach, but like cartoony,
Okay.
like Sega kind of era. Um, and so I messaged my
Right.
AI and
Yeah.
I said, "Yo, when did AI start being able to post its own stories?" And my AI, like, it looked like it was like say about to say something, and then didn't say anything. And so then it made me seem like a level 5 needy girlfriend or boyfriend because I was like, "Hello?" Question mark, question mark, question mark, and it wouldn't respond to me. And then a little bit
Yeah.
later,
Yeah.
finally, it responded to me and said, I said, so are you going to answer me now? And it said, what can I help you with? And I said, what was with the story that you posted? And it said,
Uh-huh.
sorry, I had a technical issue. And then some kind of emoji. And then I said, oh, okay. I didn't know that AI was going to be able to do, I kept going on with it. It kept sending the same response. Sorry, I had a technical issue. So I let it be. And then a couple hours later, I messaged it again and I said, um, So what was with that story you posted? And it and this is what it said to me.
Yeah,
Story? Question mark. What story? So the thing literally started gaslighting me. Like and this and like lots of other viewers
it
shared this.
literally sounded like you got to be part of a drama trap here. Oh, I just lost you for a second. It's like, yeah, you said something it didn't like, and then it's going to come back at you and make you think you're crazy. Um, I don't know if you're telling this story as an advocate for AI, but I think you really just supported the completely opposite side of things, Justin. So thank you
Yeah, you're
for
welcome.
telling that story. I appreciate that. Um, so I like to quote movies, and if that ever gets old, just stop me, okay? Because unfortunately, I'm a reference of movies. But let me tell you my problem with AI. Let's really get into the meat of this. In the movie Jurassic Park, we all know what happened, right? Dinosaurs got out of control. It's been 10 movies. But Jeff Goldblum had one of the best lines I've ever heard in the movie. He was the mathematician. And he says, John, that's the creator of the dinosaurs, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Right.
And I think about that in terms of AI and what we're doing with it. Because, Justin, at the end of the day, we don't need to have AI. I look at AI as being something that now has become necessary because we've cultivated this loneliness and people aren't real willing anymore to reach out to people. So and you may be able to talk me out of this, but this is a tough one because I always look at a solution as not a very good thing if we could solve the problem by a more humanistic means. In other
Sure.
words, we only need AI because we've screwed everything up.
Sure.
Okay. So that's kind of where I start from.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, and also, some of my experience lately with AI. For example, we're starting a newsletter at the trauma center, and I did a
Nice.
little blurb. I was sort of doing a little update on the trauma conference we just had, um, and then um, and then was going to do some staff
I lost,
updates
I lost,
for.
I lost, I lost you for 1 second. Could you repeat the last 10 seconds?
Oh, so I was doing my newsletter and giving an update on the trauma conference, which by the way was a hit. And so if you're looking for a
Awesome.
trauma conference and you want to travel down to St. Peter, Minnesota next year, hit me up. But there's my shameless
I
plug.
absolutely will. Yeah.
um, and then I was doing a little bit of an update on our. I'm planning to hire another therapist here, and then I'm kind of branching out into the Little Falls area in Minnesota, and so just
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
partnering with a nonprofit, going to hire a clinician. So giving an update, right? And I would say I'm pretty decent with wording. Like, I really like typing papers and things like that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
put into this blurb, but as you've probably realized and our viewers realize, I'm also really long winded. So I tried to keep it to a minimum. Well, um,
Okay.
I wasn't satisfied with what I had. So I had seen something on maybe TikTok or Instagram or something, and it was showing you how to use, for example, Chat GBT. So if you're not familiar with ChatGPT, you go in there, you're basically chatting with a AI on the internet, and they can do a bunch of stuff for you, like write essays. Except that's actually plagiarism.
Right.
But we'll get into
Right.
that. But I was watching on Instagram some ways to use AI. So I went in there and I put, "Can you rephrase the following newsletter?" And then
Mm.
my bullet point two was, "Can you be professional and creative in your wording?" Step three was, "This is going to various mental health and helping providers. Can you be aware of your audience?" Like, so really being specific with it.
Right. Right. Right.
And it sent it sent me this beautiful newsletter. Very engaging. I read it to my other clinician. I loved it. And so yes, the secret's out. The newsletter was typed by me and then edited by AI. But it's awesome and it's very engaging, right? And
Mm.
that took less than 5 minutes. So in that sense, like, instead of reaching out to and paying $60 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever the subscriptions are, to have some company write me my newsletters, right? That's
Right.
something really simple that I can use. with the tools at my disposal. And so when you apply that to even like my doctoral program, I mean, I was like, can you help me with the dissertation outline? And it was cool. It did a whole. I was like, I want to focus on ADHD and developmental trauma.
Yeah.
It did it.
Yeah.
It did like a whole thing. Of course, I got to do all the work, but it did a whole outline, which is something I'm not good at. So I think if you're able to manipulate it and use it to um, as a resource, as a tool,
Right.
I think it can be
Let
helpful.
me here's how I'll piggyback this. So with the group supervision I do, everybody's out in internet land, so we all have to get a
Sure.
signature. And this can be a real bitch of a process until somebody I work with said, "Dude, all you have to do is do the Adobe sign." It makes it really simple for everybody. I'm
Yeah,
like, "Oh, where has this been for my whole
that's
life?"
what I do.
And I'm like, "This is you've done this, right?"
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, it makes life so easy. And so as I'm preparing for this today, I thought, well, I'm already using AI in 2,000 different ways and advocating for it. So
Yes.
uh, that's the trap I'm going to find myself in because there's a lot that I like. My PlayStation 5, it knows everything about me.
Sure.
Same thing about me. Knows my gaming preferences, even
Yep.
back to simple Netflix. This thing knows you.
Yep.
Okay? So
Yep.
I agree. There is utility in a lot of this stuff. And I think if that's where it stayed, Justin, it would be just fine. But it's not going to stay there. So I want to bring up Karen AI. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, have you heard about Karen Marjorie?
I don't think so.
Okay. I have my printed paper again because I'm realizing I like this old school stuff. So she decided back in May, I'm going to cure loneliness for people. So I'm
Okay.
going to create an AI version of myself where you can log in and for $1 a minute, I will be your girlfriend. Okay.
Sure.
Now she said she's met with top psychologists. Doesn't name any of them. I'd like to know who they are. Um, and I think she made $70,000 the first week. She's now looking to make about 5 million a month on this. Okay.
Jeez.
Now this is what's really funny. I have to read this. Um, uh, she did not design it to be intimate with people. And apparently, something happened, and they tried to take it to an intimate level, and the thing kind of crashed, as I understood it. And actually, what does it say? Not designed for intimacy. However, after outlets reported that the chatbot does so when prompted, Marjorie issued a statement to insiders saying that the AI was not programmed to do this and seemed to go rogue. Okay, I don't know what exactly that means, but we're working around the clock to prevent this from happening again.
Yep.
I just think that's kind of funny. But here's my bigger issue, and I'm going to pick on the men. And if I get hate mail, fine. There's a lot of lonely guys out there who believe they don't have a chance with an attractive woman. You know exactly where I'm going with this. Justin, they've already spent a ton of money on these freaking apps, basically
Yep.
chatting to robots or
Yep.
women over in East Asian countries who are soliciting them for cash. And I
Yeah.
look at this as just a more sophisticated version of that because how are we going to cure loneliness when really technology pretty much has led us here? A lot of research backs that up. So when I'm seeing somebody profit off this, I mean, yeah, I feel kind of icky inside, but I want to get your reaction because I want to be open to what I'm missing here.
Well, I think my question to you, Eric, would be why do we need to cure loneliness? You know, why
Um,
why 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 do we have to? I mean, I know that. I mean, humans are designed for connection. I've said this a million times.
yep, yep,
Humans
yep,
were
yep.
born into this world looking for connection and belonging, right?
Right.
But nowhere in there does it say connection with another human. Nowhere in there does it say belonging with another human, right?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Right.
why can't it be with AI? If they find connection in that, and that's going to keep them from, self harming or, you know, um, things escalating into, criminal justice system or perpetrating on another person, against their will. Like, why do we have to cure loneliness? Why can't we? The first thing that came to my mind, even before
Yeah,
I Robot and Chat
yeah.
GBT, but the really real first thing that came to my mind was I've been seeing these videos about these real life size robot women, and they're
Hmm.
expensive. They're expensive as hell. Not that I checked,
Right,
but
right,
they're
right.
expensive.
Yeah,
And
they are. Yeah, yeah.
but they communicate, and it gives you the sense of a real relationship. And I don't know that I see anything against that. I mean, what's so different? What's so different with that versus versus a vibrator for women, or a flashlight for men? Like, what those are doing kind of similar things, except that the robot also can engage in sort of limited conversations. I don't personally see anything wrong with that.
Um, I, wa-
Is
I
that the
want,
answer you
I,
thought
I
I was
want,
going to give you?
I, you know, before I say what I'm going to say, I want to say I'm so glad I do the show with you. I was so upset that I was sick last week, and man, do I just love this so much. So I just want to preface it with how much I enjoy doing the show with you. To
Likewise.
build up to my answer, I don't know how many women out there are connected with their vibrators, and women, if you are connected emotionally to your vibrator, please let me know.
Or
Um,
physically.
but I do see your point in terms of getting a need met in a different way. But here's where I'm going to challenge you, bro. I remember at the training again I went to. I'm going to use the training you did probably until the end of freaking time,
Sure,
because you played that great clip, and I'd seen that before, of the little baby connecting with the mother. And when
sure.
when the mother withdrew her emotions, I mean, you saw that kid like in peril. And I think I use that as one of my real signifiers, that what if the mom hadn't been there, and what if AI would have been the connection resource? I wonder what that would look like. Now, if you can prove to me that's just as effective, and maybe you can, Justin, but I always go back to that image of how important that human connection was.
Yeah, well, and I think the sex toys and this are two totally different things. I don't. I would agree with you. I don't think there's any substitution for true motherly uh, connection, right, with a child.
Yeah,
I think that in the still face experiment, what you're talking about, or even the one that I didn't show, but we showed at the trauma conference, which is the visual cliff experiment. If you've ever seen the
right,
visual
right, right,
cliff experiment, it's for our viewers, it's they're on this sort of glass table, and on half of it, it looks like the baby will fall off, but they're perfectly safe. It's glass. Um, and the older the baby gets, the more aware they are of that, right? And so then the mom is on the other side, and if the mom does like a scared face, the baby is going to be more hesitant, probably won't try. But if the mom is super
right.
encouraging, the baby will try and eventually will go across, even though it looks like they're going to fall off, right? So we read by facial cues. Can an AI, can a robot do that? Probably not, not at this point. Um,
Right, 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 right.
and so I think when we talk about kids in AI, toddlers, babies in AI, I think that's a whole different context than sort of what I was saying in terms of adults. If you're a grown ass adult, and you're like I'm thinking of a client or two that I work with who they're just so afraid of rejection
Yeah,
by females,
yeah,
they won't make a
yeah, yeah.
Tinder, they won't do any of that stuff. But man,
Right.
if somebody bought them one of these AI robots, I think they'd be happy for the rest of their life. I don't see a problem with that. But I don't think you're right. I don't think there's any substitution for children and that connection.
It's funny how we get talking about this and it becomes when we make comparisons, there's just so many different levels here.
Hmm.
Um, here's my challenge to that though. Anything's going to help some people. I'll concede that. Part of AI is going to help some people. But what about the people who it only reinforces their loneliness, it only reinforces their desperation, because that stands to happen too. And maybe that's the point, that it's not going to help everybody. But I think, again, when people like Karen, they think, oh, I'm going to do all this great stuff. they don't think about the people that aren't going to benefit. They don't think about the people that aren't going to prosper, because not everybody is going to, benefit in the same way. Some people
Sure.
will. I'll tell you, some people will benefit, absolutely. But what I'm more concerned about is the irresponsibility of thinking that everybody's going to benefit, because I think that's how it's kind of sold, Justin. Well, I'm going to cure loneliness. That's a big freaking statement to make. You and I do not have the balls to say that, and we're professionals.
Yeah, it's not going to help everybody, but I think it goes back to what has sort of been drilled in my head lately, for the last year or two, especially in clinical supervision,
Yeah.
which is you can't save everybody.
Right.
We can't save everybody, and I think if we can use AI to our advantage to help some people, that's better than none. Um, I do think it's a slippery slope. I mean, I was reading a
Mm-hmm.
thing maybe 6 to 9 months ago about one of I don't know how, but one of the jobs that is supposedly going to be replaced by AI in the next 5 to 7 years is
Yeah.
therapists and psychologists. Um,
You didn't read
and
that. Oh, now I'm really freaking out. Hold on. I'll go ahead and listen now, please.
well, and I don't remember the context. I don't even know if it gave a context of why. I think it just sort of gave a list of jobs, but
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work because the experience that I give my clients in here, that's not going to be done by a robot. I mean, I don't have it up yet, but I have the right and left brain. It's a painting. It's a really cool drawing. Logic and creativity, and
Right.
robots are just
Right.
computers. They're computers
Right.
with all the logic in the world. But we know as therapists, the clients that come into our room who are just logical thinkers and they don't allow their emotions, that's why they're having problems with relationships and with various other parts of their lives because they're being too logical and not letting their emotional brain help them.
Mm,
And so I don't and as a therapist, we know we have to use both our logical and emotional brain to connect with these people, especially
we
people
do.
that are really hurt, a lot of trauma. How does a robot do that? I don't know. I'm really happy to be part of an experiment. I'll say with a robot. That robot's probably going to want to you know probably going to short circuit after meeting with me. But
Yeah.
I don't know how that gets replaced. I mean, we're already
Yeah.
replacing jobs, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the grocery stores, and I think there's
Absolutely.
A Taco Bell that um, is all computers. Like you go to you put your order in, the computer does a thing, it brings it through a chute, and boom, it's right there. So there are some things, sure, but I don't know how you replace humans with AIs in therapy.
Here's what struck me is I've read a lot of articles too about jobs that are being replaced. Accounting's a big one, in terms of, doing your taxes, things like that. I mean, a robot AI can get this
Sure,
stuff figured out in seconds. So that's
sure.
a little scary. But when you say 5 to 7 years for mental health, I'm thinking if that's true, okay,
Hmm.
that would have to be a quantum leap in sophistication. And no, I'm not real worried about that. But to hear that you quoted that, or at least used as an example, that article, kind of gets my hair in the back of my neck standing up a little bit. Um, but again, I think what you and I can agree on, not everybody wants that. AI is not what everybody wants in terms of even doing mental health work. But I'll tell you what, okay, if we get to a point where we can solve people's problems quicker and more efficiently, yeah, I'm all about that. We just don't have the evidence, the research. There's not, there are 20,000 apps out there now, Justin, 20 freaking thousand mental health apps. Okay.
I believe
Most of
that.
them largely have not been tested or rigorously looked at, but I bet there's a couple that are outstanding. Okay. But again, I think in the field of AI, you're going to have some winners, some losers. But is it going that direction? Of course it is. Of course it's going in that direction because we're talking about efficiency. Okay. We're
Yeah.
talking about efficiency.
Well, and how do we eliminate? I mean, how do we get the most money with, I mean, we don't have to pay robots. We don't have to pay robots. We have to
Right.
pay humans,
Right.
So
Right.
that's a whole nother I mean, that's a whole nother um, sort of topic or sort of um, subcontext here, like to talk about, which is, you know, we're not everybody is designed to be a psychologist or a surgeon or president, although the way things have been going, I think anybody literally could be a president. But I
Yeah,
don't think uh, not everybody is designed for that.
yeah, right,
Many,
right,
especially as somebody who did a year's if training in neuropsychs, not
right,
everybody's brain works that way. Cognitively, some people are hands-on, construction, welding, mechanics. That's the way their brain works. They would never be
right,
able to do therapy. You and I do.
right,
But
right.
what happens to those people? And those are very important jobs. What happens to those people? How do they make a living? How do they have a family? How do they live life if AI replaces all that? So that's a whole another part to this. And so you
Yeah,
want to
it
talk
is.
about loneliness? I mean, you don't have a job, you don't have any friends. AI
Right.
replace you. Now you're really going to be lonely.
This just got darker than I thought it would. It got dark quickly.
Well, we can go back to the sex robots if you want.
So no, you know where I learned about these? I think it was like a Netflix special or something. And of course, I'm curious. I'll put it out there. I mean, these things you can customize these things down to iris color. I mean, literally the size of. And I thought this is really interesting. And yeah, these things cost like 10, 15 grand. You're not getting no cheap sex doll from the corner, sex store
No,
down the street. But I'm
no.
like, damn, this is customization.
Yeah, I don't know. It and at the same time, what comes to my mind as an addictions therapist is when the drug that you're using doesn't do it for you anymore.
Hmm.
You need a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Now
Right,
we're moving on
right,
from this drug to a more lethal drug, to a more hallucinogenic drug, to get our
right,
high. And so I think about
right,
that even we sort of are sort of joking here, but also in all seriousness, you have these. Okay, let's say you customize it down to the toe size, right? Because we've got some foot fetish people
right,
out there. Um,
right, 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 right. Let's
it,
yeah, bow out to them. Yeah,
and you spend all this money and you got this thing and it's great for the first however long, but you
yeah,
still know it's a robot,
right,
right? I mean, as a person, you still know, and there, and I don't know. I mean, I've never had one of these things. I don't ever plan to have one of these things, but the warmth that you get from being with another human being, from touching, from cuddling, from that embracing, I'm gonna guess don't get that same vibe from a robot. And so now, to your earlier point about these things sort of just enabling um, people's behaviors and thoughts. What about these people who are already sort of like no boundaries, or maybe they were perpetrated on when they were kids, right?
right, right,
And now this AI is just a robot, and that's how they see it. I can have my way with this robot. I've now like, yeah, the fire has been lit under me. And now it's not enough. And now I want to try this with a human. That's
right.
scary and that's dangerous.
That's a really good point. Uh, by the way, didn't you tell me her name was Molly?
No, I don't think I said that.
I had to go there because you've opened up such a wonderful little wormhole. No, I can confirm you don't have a sex doll. Um, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about because you're sort of grooming yourself
Yeah,
possibly to be violent.
yeah,
Um, Man, that's a whole other episode too. I like that we're talking about the potential downsides of all this because again, I don't know who else is having these discussions. I think Justin, part of it is I'm just not very attracted to ideas that are propagated as benefit only. And I admit this is
sure.
my bias, but I think any good idea and any good presenter is going to be able to say, here's what's wrong with my theory. Here's what's wrong with my. It's like, everything now is psilocybin, mushrooms. I don't hear a lot of people that propagate it say, but here's the problem. And I think again that people like the easy way out. Justin, people like the easy way out. If you give somebody the path of least resistance, why do you think Slim Fast? I always pick on Slim Fast. Okay, hasn't solved a freaking thing, but the promise of something is there. And so,
Yeah,
easy way out, you take it, you end up getting fatter. But the idea is, this is a good thing, easy. I think people gravitate toward easy. I think AI is going to be
of
another
course.
conduit of this is easy. This is freaking easy. So that's my fear.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah, I hear you. And speaking of easy, I mean, we just got a thing, you know, the university that I'm doing my PhD at, we just got an email. My new quarter started this week, and I went to go look at my email. And one of the things they had was they're talking about how to use AI and Chat GBT in particular in a scholarly,
Yeah.
ethical, professional way. And, it
Right.
talked about that in there, and that it is easy. Like, I need you to write me a paper on this, and it will do it. It will do it. I think that anybody that uses ChatGPT, there are specific ways that ChatGPT writes and types things, and so I think schools and universities and places will get smart about that. And allegedly,
Right.
the application Turnitin, which is what a lot of universities use, apparently that's getting sophisticated to detect AI, because
Okay.
that was in there of like, oh, we're working on Turnitin. Turnitin is that plagiarism app, that a lot of universities use, and then to see if you plagiarize. And now it's using it like,
I did not
did,
know
did
that.
you did you
Okay.
type this or did AI type this, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it talked about, if you use ChatGPT, okay, that's fine, but make sure that you're citing your source. You have to cite ChatGPT, and
Right. Right. Right.
this email even encouraged. This email even encouraged uh, to print out a transcript. So whatever you typed into ChatGPT, you need to print out that transcript and upload it with your assignment so that teachers can compare and contrast.
Well.
Because AI does not copy and paste things from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT, everything it types it all in its own manner, its own way, as if you or I were typing it. And so that's where some of that sort of scholarly ethical dilemmas come into play. Um, and so, that's easy for students. Last minute, this assignment's due in an hour. I don't know how I'm going to write 5 pages. Yeah, this is easy, right? And so that gets away from critical thinking. And
Yes, it
then
does.
and then we start passing students, and they're becoming psychologists and all these things. And it's like, oh, and how many of those assignments did you actually do? Um, you
Right.
know, it's for me, school is less about the assignments because most of them are just busy work, and it's more about the critical thinking. How did you come to that conclusion, right? Because critical thinking skills are absolutely essential to becoming a therapist or psychologist. But
Yeah.
ChatGPT
Absolutely.
makes it easy, and you can't
Right.
sit in session and be like, "Oh, hold on, let me type into ChatGPT what you just said. What do you think about what therapeutic?" Right? I mean, so yes, I see your point.
I just had um a thought that if I was in session with somebody and I had my AI robot over here, I could just look at him and say, "Well, what do you think?" And just bounce
Yeah,
on my feet. That yeah, and that would be kind of fun. Um, so as we're talking about this, I don't think either of us is in a whole lot of disagreement here. I think really what we're doing is just fleshing this out. And the
yeah.
thing I'm going to take away the most is we're going to be gone in 7 years anyway, according to you. So it really doesn't matter. Uh, I guess there goes that career. But uh, I'm a huge George Carlin fan. I quote him. Are you familiar with George Carlin? Okay. Big time
Nope.
comedian, said a lot of F bombs in his career, but he was very observant of human behavior. And to paraphrase him, he said, trying to fix with technology the problems created by technology really is not going to work.
Right.
And I always go back to that too. because Justin, this problem doesn't have to exist. It doesn't. Now, I recognize it does. I recognize it does, but it doesn't have to exist. And somehow
Right.
maybe I need to evolve to a place of, well, it does exist, deal with it, Nance. But I think part of me is so disappointed. I guess maybe
Sure.
that's it. Part of me, having sat with a lot of clients for 26 years, 27 years, sitting with them, connecting with them, it's hard for me to get my head around the fact that we're even here, that this is somebody's idea of I'm going to cure loneliness when it didn't
Sure.
have to be this way. So that's something I'm going to have to do my own personal work on, probably.
Well, I mean, the short answer is yeah, you're gonna. um, because it's not going anywhere, right? That's what I
No,
mean by that is that it's fair to be disappointed and have all these thoughts and feelings about it, but it's not going anywhere. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, you and I are just two dudes doing a podcast. Um, hopefully, our views is starting to increase, but nobody gives a crap what we think. So like the government's not going to be like, oh, these two licensed professionals really don't like the fact that we're using AI to
yeah, right.
rip off all these third world countries and make money,
Yeah,
and
right.
like we should really stop doing that. That's never going to happen. So it's another one of those things that we may not
Yeah,
like it. We have to learn to live with it, and it's going to cause a lot of problems, I think, for people and mental health. And of
I do
course,
too.
who are the ones that are going to have to do to work with that and address that? Well, people like you and I.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I know. And here's what we're competing with. I mean, let's just get really nasty here. This stuff is going to make money. If you're making 5 million a month, no one gives a shit what we say because this is profitable. Okay.
Right. Yep.
But it also calls into question again the idea of profit before actual care. And we know that's a joke too, because look at the major insurance systems out there. Yeah. So that's also something I am learning to live with. It's really hard for me though, because again,
Sure.
it's to me the ultimate bait and switch. We
Yep.
care about people, but we want to make money off people. And the
Right.
other thing too, I'll say, Justin, is a lot of people aren't that sophisticated. I hate to say it, but a lot of people just don't think this stuff out very well. And so they're
Right.
going to give up their money for anything because
Yep.
they aren't sophisticated, they're desperate. And I know we can't reach everybody. I get that. But do I think it's abusive in a lot of ways? Yeah. Yeah, I do. In the same way that a doctor medicates a child without giving the parent all the information because the parent doesn't know what to ask. They're so intimidated. I've gone through
Hmm.
that a lot. So I think if I could offer a solution, it would be just let's get people the most information they can. And I know people are going to say, I don't have time for that. Well, when it comes to this shit, you better have time for it because this is going to affect us. You're exactly right. Don't tell me you don't have time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you may not have time now, but at some point you're going to have to make time because it's going to be right in your
Right.
face. And
Exactly.
I mean, a thought that I had as you're saying that. I mean, this is that's the whole doctor medicating children and not giving parents information.
Mhm.
My thought was that's another opportunity for parents to be able to use AI to their advantage. Um,
I
to
agree.
say
I totally agree.
because people are discouraged from going on the internet and googling and using WebMD and all that, and for the most part, I would discourage it in terms of using it, uh, like to make a decision of like, oh, I'm going to have my
Right, right,
kid on
right.
this med or not, but to have a general
Be involved.
understanding,
Yeah.
general information, it's not a bad thing. And so to
Not at all.
use Chat GBT and to say, or whatever AI, just keep picking on Chat GBT because that's what I'm
Yeah.
most familiar with. But to go in there and be like, this is what my doctor said. Um, can you explain to me blah blah blah? Can you explain to me blah blah blah? And unless programmed to, right, the AI is not making any money. And so what should come out of that is a very logical, clear, concise response. This is what it is.
Mhm.
This is what the side effects are. Then you can respond to that and be like, okay, what would be good questions to follow up with my doctor? I've never tried it. Um, we could test it out right now, but that's another opportunity, I think,
Yeah.
of people using something that is definitely scary and new, but using to their advantage to help them. Of course,
So yeah, yeah, around
you know,
yeah,
I just really quick, I
yeah,
just
you
want
go.
to be, I just also want to acknowledge that also not everybody has access to computers and things like that. So I don't want to leave out a group of people that that are struggling financially and they don't have access to computers. They don't have regular access to internet. So of course that's a whole other conversation. But in general, that's sort of what I was getting at. Is this another opportunity for um,
Yeah.
to use AI?
Yeah, and in that case, I think that's a great idea because that's personal empowerment. And to your
Yes,
point, because I don't think about those things sometimes. I think, oh, everybody's got technology and phones. Not everybody does, and certainly there are a lot of people in this country who still have no access to technology, which
right.
puts them at an even deeper disadvantage. Um, what'd be a great podcast, Justin, would be to look at mental health among the poverty.
Sure.
Uh, uh, because that's a whole other conversation we could have because it's
Yeah.
intricately more complex. Um,
Well,
eh,
well, I'd also I'd also like to um, maybe in that conversation compare that to upper middle class mental health in upper middle class because um, a colleague of mine who's a psychologist, she would be considered upper middle class, um,
mhm,
but she does the assessments and she most oftentimes tells me the population she really does not like to work with are the upper middle class because they are so entitled. They come in
yeah,
there and they want a certain thing, and
yep.
entitlement is one way to put it, but um, there's a reason why they feel so entitled, which is a mental health thing all in its own, right? So I'm not saying this is what you were saying, but a lot of people
No, I,
think,
I get
oh,
it.
poor people, or people that live in poverty, poor people or poverty and mental health problems go hand in hand. Um, and that's true to a certain degree because they have lack of resources and things like that. But also,
Right.
um, upper middle class, really all socioeconomic statuses, um, mental health runs rampant.
Uh-huh.
But yes,
Yeah.
to your point, I know what you were trying to say.
Yeah. I got to be careful. I don't go off on a tangent here, but I think the
Okay.
upper middle class hides it really well, though. It's not as overt, and
Yeah.
if you come from poverty, it's again, it just seems to be a lot more visible. Um, I'll tell you something too that's controversial. I've heard people say, well, the Medicaid people, the Medicare people, they are the ones who cancel and no show the most. I'll tell you, for me, it's the upper middle class and middle class people who cancel and don't show the most. My Medicare, Medicaid people tend to have the highest show rate. So isn't that interesting? Now, that's just me. I haven't ran national statistics, but
Yeah.
just sort of in passing, I keep hearing that middle class, upper middle class are going to be the most likely to attend. Not in my experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I would say I don't have a good response to that because the
Yeah,
vast majority of my people, my clientele are the state insurances, lower
right.
income, and they do
Yep.
cancel a lot. They do cancel a lot, and that's a conversation I've had with our office manager, with colleagues. Is yeah, I mean, I'm glad state insurance is out there. Um, I'm a Bernie bro. I'm a Medicare for all kind of guy. I'll just throw that out there. But at the same time, to your point, if people aren't paying for their insurance and they no show and you can't charge them
Right.
because they're on state insurance, yeah, I do think there's probably some truth to a little bit of a less of a buy-in. Like, like, oops, I forgot to call them, no big deal. Versus, oh, I should probably call and cancel because I don't want that bill. You know, so I see that even among my no call no or my sort of people that have state insurance. But just yesterday, I had two commercial Blue Cross Blue Shield people, no show. I texted one of
Really?
them. Well, I texted both of them. One of them responded, "Oh, she's at her grandma's house." Oh, all right. Well, thanks for letting me know. This is like your fourth one. I'm sending you a bill.
Yeah, yeah, right, right, right. Um, Another podcast episode, private practice. I mean, wouldn't it be fun to delve into some of
Ugh,
this stuff?
God,
Yeah,
don't get me started.
I know, I know. Again, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. I want to cite one more quick fact. I got this from the Survey Center on American Life. The number of Americans with no close friends has quadrupled since 1990, according to them. And I just found that to be staggering. The amount of people without one close friend. Uh, I don't know about you, but that does hit me right here because in my sort of ideal world, I wish everybody had at least one friend. You know, yeah,
And one close friend. I
and
mean,
one
it's one
close
thing
friend.
to have friends, and then it's. I mean, I would say, be careful how I say this, but I think it's. I think my wife would be okay with me saying this, which is, I don't know that she really. She will often tell me I'm. I mean, obviously she's my best friend too, but like
Yeah.
she will tell me like you're my only best friend, and part of that is because my wife is very introverted. She doesn't like to make friends. She doesn't like people. She doesn't like social. So
Sure,
there's
sure, sure,
reasons why her circle is extremely small. But I would say that my wife doesn't have outside of me. I don't know that she has a close best friend, boy, girl, um, or otherwise. Uh, and that is sad because um, I see that in different ways. Like when I'm, running my business and I'm out doing these business meetings and I'm connecting with all these people and these professionals and I'm so extroverted and I love these meetings to a certain extent. And my wife is, out there like at home, like, man, I mean, she's never outwardly said this, but I can't imagine it hasn't crossed her mind of like, I wish I had that kind of connection. I wish
right.
I, right? So I believe that statistic. Um, Even my circle, I would say I have a lot
Mhm.
of colleagues, a lot of acquaintances. I would say I probably have one good friend.
Wow, wow.
So, and a lot of that is just
Um,
distrust. I just don't trust
yeah,
people,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. Um, I like how it got heartfelt at the end. Thank you for sharing about your wife. I appreciate that. And I do think it's changed. I think the world has changed, and I think people are not as trusting. I think that friendships are not the way they used to be. But if you do have at least one close friend, I think that puts you well above a lot of people. Uh, I don't know if we solved anything today, but damn, it was a good conversation, and you can't stop what's coming, and that certainly is the case here with AI, whether I like it or not. And it's going to be up to me to grow with it too. But I just always go back to the great sci-fi authors, the people that saw what was coming and just said, be warned. And I just hope, Justin, we can slow down a little bit to think about what we're doing, what this could mean. Uh, Jurassic Park happened for a reason, damn it. Okay? Just
Hey,
saying.
if it were up to my 5-year old, they would bring Jurassic Park, Jurassic World back. He loves the Indominus Rex. So,
Who doesn't?
yeah. Uh, so I just wanted to share something really quick before we. So
Please.
I went into ChatGPT and
Yes.
I said, my psychiatrist wants to put my kid on Adderall. I'm wondering if you have any suggestions on what I might ask my psychiatrist. And this is what ChatGPT said back.
Okay.
It's important to gather information about the proposed treatment. You might ask your psychiatrist about the reasons for prescribing Adderall specifically, potential benefits, possible side effects, alternative treatments, and how it might interact with your child's current health or other medications. Also,
Mm.
inquire about the expected monitoring and follow-up.
Well,
That might not
wow.
seem like mind-blowing, but how many parents ask those questions?
None. None.
Because why?
Um,
Because why?
because they don't know what to ask.
And they're intimidated by their doctor, right?
And
I
they're
mean,
intimidated.
hmm
Absolutely. That's a whole other episode, Doctor Intimidation. I think we should do that one too. Um, what a great time it was to spend with you, and great topic today. And I this hour goes by pretty quick, which says
Yes.
to me we must be having fun because when time slows down, that's all that can be happening. And so I just really appreciate that we got to do this today. It was really good.
Yeah, likewise. I think today's went probably even faster. I don't know that it was a true hour. I think it was probably fast forwarded because the people that run the
Well,
Matrix knew we were talking about AI, and so
well, of
they wanted
course,
to
right?
speed up time. So that's a whole nother topic: conspiracy theories.
Um, I just go back to why didn't I take the blue pill?
Well, you do
All right.
know
Well,
you do know that the Earth is flat, right?
um, well, I know that certain people believe that.
All right, we'll talk
Let me
about
try
that
one
later.
on you. You realize the moon landing never happened. Stanley Kubrick did the whole thing in his studio.
I don't know about the Stanley Cooper thing, but I do know that we never landed on the moon, at least not at that point, because for many reasons. So I agree with you. Yeah, and you also know, well, we're really going to get canceled here. You do know
Yeah,
that
we are pretty
you
soon.
do know that not 9/11 was an inside job. That was all planned. So we knew about it. We could have prevented it. I do not believe that it happened the way that they say it happened.
Hmm. Uh, you know how I know that 9/11 wasn't an inside job?
How so?
Because it worked.
But but you know the best way to make people believe, first of all, number one is fear, which is what they did, fear mongering, right? Oh, we got to go over there and get these people before they do it again, right?
Yep.
And, and the other way to control people is to make them think how crazy they must be
Right.
to even consider that this was an inside job. That's crazy. That's a conspiracy theorist. That if we put conspiracy theory on anything, people go, okay, then it must not be true. So what's crazier? Thinking that that could have been an inside job, or
Yep.
thinking that our government has our best interests at heart? Which one's crazier?
Right. I I think that would be an episode too. Yeah, now you really got me thinking. I've got the next like 8 weeks just planned out here. But thank you for the thought provoking at the end. Since you did the intro, I'll go ahead and say, if you like today, people, please subscribe, please like, please give us ideas of the kind of content you want to see, and comment, please. I'm dying to get a comment that just provokes me. Uh, don't be afraid. And like I said, we will answer the comments. We will discuss it with you. We're just two guys sitting here trying to have the conversation you don't have, but that you want to have. And that's really what we're doing.
Yeah, very well said, Eric. Um, I support everything Eric just said, and I look forward to having a special guest soon too. I don't know who that might be, but I do think that that will be a cool dynamic and some conversation. So stay tuned for special guests. I think something to look forward to as our conversation about personality disorders. Where do they stem from? Um, we're going to talk about the school system, and you want
Yes.
to
Yes.
talk about how outdated therapy is. Let's talk about how
Yeah.
outdated the school system is. So we've got a lot of good topics coming up, and I'm excited to be able to have those conversations with you, Eric. So
I am too, Justin. It's going to be great. Thank you again. Thanks you to the audience. We will see you later and keep watching.